Hello and good morning. This is the decision session of the combined executive. It's the 1st of July, it's 10 a.m. and we will be having a number of different chairs. I will be starting this meeting, then we will be moving to the markedly more professional Councillor Kent. And finally, Councillor Douglas, who is going to be substituting for Councillor Steels-Walshaw, will be chairing the final agenda item. And that means that we will just be having to rearrange slightly the running order of today's meeting, so that agenda item 8, the use of Acomb Garth for the 24/7 Neighbourhood Mental Health Centre pilot, will now be agenda item 9 and will be replaced by the strategic partner endorsement of the White Rose Forest Strategic Plan 2025 to 2050. Always riveting. So, are there any declarations of interest? No. The minutes of the combined executive member decision session held on the 3rd of June were an accurate record. I've read that. I was in attendance at that meeting, and I will sign those after the meeting. We do have a member of the public, well, hardly a member of the public, an esteemed member of the council. We've got Councillor Carol Runciman, who wants to speak to us on agenda item, what is now 9, the use of Acomb Garth for the 24/7 Neighbourhood Mental Health Centre pilot. Hello, Carol, and it's lovely to see you. Please start whenever you would like. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that my opposite number, as it were, Councillor Steels-Walshaw, isn't here, but I'm sure she'll find out what I said, but I hope she's having a very good time wherever she is. So I want to talk about the Acomb Garth item, which is now item 9, which I know Kate and Michael, let alone Sarah, all know quite a lot about. It does follow on from what the previous administration did, which is putting services in the community. And I know that for all of us, that is really very, very important. And Kate, I read the co-design report with great interest. It's very long, but it's very, very interesting. But I do have some concerns now that I want to raise, which I hope people will be able to answer. The first is the biggest worry, which is that the NHS grant is for 2 years. And I'm concerned about the continuity of services. People, particularly people with mental health issues, need to know those services are going to be there for them when they need them. So that ongoing funding, I'd like to know what confidence we have about the ongoing funding. The second thing I want to raise is about existing services. And there are a lot, I've obviously been to Acomb Garth, there are a lot of services in there already. And I'd like to know whether that has been discussed with those services and whether they will have to find another home or whether they'll be able to run in conjunction with the mental health hub that will go into Acomb Garth. The next thing I want to ask, and I did look for it and couldn't find it, the Haven at 30 Clarence Street, as Councillor Pavlik knows well, has got a 136 suite. It's a place of safety. And I didn't know whether in Acomb Garth that the plans would include another 136 suite, because I do think that's actually very, very important. And certainly in my time, we worked very hard with the police to make sure that that was available. So that's a very straightforward question. The next one is really much more complicated because of the legal issues that are coming up, particularly about the license to occupy. And that is something that clearly is not from my reading of the report, is not yet sorted. And I hope that that won't prove an impediment to the developing of Acomb Garth, which I think is in the right place and doing the right job. And then I have one last question, and that is about consultation, and particularly about consultation with local councillors. I know that when you start something like this in the community, rumours spread wildly, and they may or may not be accurate rumours. So I think it's really important, particularly for those 3 councillors in that ward, but also as it covers 2 other wards, the other councillors in the other wards, that they know what's going on, and they're able to nip any misinformation in the bud and make sure that people know who need that service is coming along. So those are my questions. Thank you very much. And I shall take a glass of water and retire defeated. Thank you.
Thank you. Hardly defeated, Carol. What I would ask, though, as Councillor Douglas isn't here at the moment, but will be joining us later, whether you could précis the questions and issues that have been raised by Councillor Runciman and respond to them as part of your introduction, if that's okay. Is that okay? Did you catch that, Carol? No. So what I asked Sarah, Michael, and Kate to do is to they have made notes of your questions and queries, and to raise them and answer them when Councillor Douglas arrives. So if you watch it later on the webcast, oh, you're staying, lovely. Oh, well, you're more than welcome. We've got stray dogs coming up soon. Thank you. So now we move to the agenda items proper, and the first agenda item we have is one that falls under my responsibility, which is the merger of the Safer York Business Partnership with York Bid, including the transfer of reserves. And we have Tanya Lyon and, oh no, just Pauline. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Jay Mowat's joining us online, but if that's unsuccessful, I will take the item.
Ah, right. What do I do?
Nothing. She's just there.
Right. Jane.
I'm here.
Ah, perfect. Done.
You should be able to hear me. Okay, that's
Yes,
great.
okay. You can hear you perfectly.
Brilliant.
So, Jane, would you like to introduce this item and the rationale for it?
Yes, so we've had a business crime partnership in the city since 1997. It's a completely separate entity to the community safety partnership. It's purely there to allow communication between businesses and the police around retail crime and other crime and antisocial behaviour that affects the business community. It's had a number of reinventions. It started out as Racy, Retailers Against Crime in York. It was then rebranded later in 2016 as York Business Against Crime, and then rebranded again in 2023 as Safer York Business Crime Partnership. All of these rebrandings have coincided with the development of the partnership and the growth of its remit and changes to the communication and radio systems that have been introduced to support their work. It's a thriving partnership. It has over 180 members signed up to it. However, it has been really challenging for a separate entity that is just an organisation in its own right, that's self-running, to maintain its momentum. Originally, the governance structure did include a full board made up of representatives from the business community. That fell by the wayside really after COVID, when the business sector was trying to cope with the challenges of coming back after the pandemic. We lost members to the board and have really struggled to recruit since then. The organisation has been kept running by Colin Morton, who was the coordinator employed by the partnership to facilitate and run the organisation as a whole. He took the decision early in this year, back in January, to retire. At that time, because we have been managing the finances for the partnership completely separate to the council. It's not council money, it's partnership money, but it's been sitting within my budget space within the council, just purely to give them somewhere to hold it and the ability to be able to access what they needed. The running costs of the partnership have been extremely low, really only paying the coordinator's salary and minimal running costs around administration, equipment, etc. It's built up quite a substantial amount of reserves during its lifespan, mainly because the radio contract provided some commission. That money has remained largely unspent and has just been sat as a reserve within that budget. In January, Colin Morton and myself had a conversation with York Bid, based on the premise that the bid has the governance structure in place. There were synergies and in some ways some duplication around the conversations and communications that take place with the business community around crime. The bid has a safe partnership, part of which looks at retail crime, looks at other crime and antisocial behaviour relating to the business community, and they also manage Purple Flag, again, a portion of which relates to crime and community safety. The bids were quite keen to take on the running of the partnership. That would keep it sustainable and enable it to grow and also be supported with a proper governance structure and some resilience. It's been a concern for some time that there was only Colin involved in the running of the partnership. Following those discussions, the bid took it to their board in the end of March, and they approved the bid taking on the responsibility for running the business crime partnership. The only outstanding area is now to transfer the reserves accounts, which have been sitting within that budget space in my budget, across to the bid to help them to grow and develop the work of the business partnership going forward. Since they took responsibility at the end of March when Colin retired, they've managed to grow the membership already. So it's already proving that it's a viable and good move going forwards. And they've recently been re-awarded Purple Flag status for the city. So again, it's in alignment with those aspirations and aims around supporting the business community to achieve community safety aims.
Thank you, Jane. So just to confirm and to clarify that this money is money that's been built up over a period of time through commission that's been paid regarding the radio contract, and that although we hold it, it's not strictly CYC money.
That's correct. It's not City of York Council money at all. It's literally, we have held it within my budget space on behalf of the partnership. It sits as a separate budget, has its own annual reporting place. An annual financial report is produced at the end of every 12-month period. That's obviously just happened in relation to the last year. There are no outstanding transactions on that account now since the 31st of March, because the bid have taken full responsibility now for all the contracts that were held by the business partnership. So the amount that is sat there is just really the reserves that have been accrued while we have been looking after the finances on their behalf. Yeah,
that's fine. So it's their money and they want it. Yes. So I'm more than happy to agree that, and the recommendation that's on page 15, paragraph 9, recommended that the executive member approves the transfer of reserve funding held by Safer York Business Crime Partnership to the York bid to preserve the valuable services provided by the scheme in assisting the police with tackling crime and antisocial behaviour impacting on the business community. Yes, absolutely, completely agree, and that can now happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
So we now move on to agenda item 7, which is again falling under my portfolio area. And this is the re-procurement of the stray dog service contract. And I have Tanya Lyon. If you can introduce yourself, Tanya, and also Pauline. Pauline, if you want to introduce yourself when you speak as well, that would be lovely.
Hi, Tanya Lyon, Community Safety Manager, and also manage the Council's Neighbourhood Enforcement team. So this, to comply with procurement rules, this report asks for officers to have delegated authority to tender for the next 3-year stray dog contract, which through pre-market testing, we've identified maybe over £250,000 in value. The stray dog service is a statutory service for councils. Some councils provide the service in-house, most contract it out. City of York Council has contracted out that service for many years. The aim of the service is that the contractor receives reports of stray dogs. They then will go out, try and locate the dog. We'll try and reunite the dog with its owner through scanning for microchips and making local inquiries. Members of the public can also drop off any dogs that they found at the contractor's kennels. In between the dog being brought into the service and being reunited with its owner, the dog would be kennelled, and there is a kennelling charge. There's a reclaim fee of £80 for anyone who comes to collect their dog, plus the £14 per day or part day kennelling charge that must be paid. It's a very well run service. So basically the request is because now the increases have come around, we suspect because of increases in national insurance, in energy costs, in utility costs, in feeding costs. They've all contributed to this increase in service. Clearly we will tender for the service. We will try to get best value. So our intention will be as far as we can to try and get below that £250,000 threshold. But we've brought the report to you today because of the potential that it might likely go over. And in terms of procurement rules and regulations, we need to get approval from yourself for that.
Thank you, Tanya. So just a couple of questions, really. One, the kennelling fee, does that go to the contractor or does that come to the council?
Those costs come back to us.
Those costs come back to us.
As does the reclaim fee.
And over the past 3 years, the vast majority of dogs were either reunited with their owners or were rehomed.
Yes, yes. And the service works very closely with the neighbourhood enforcement team. In addition, if we get persistent strays, then they will liaise with the neighbourhood enforcement team so we can serve community protection warnings on notice against those people who are allowing their dogs to persistently stray. But yes, the majority of dogs have been rehomed through investigation.
And we have the separate PSPL about keeping your dogs under control as well, don't we? So there are two options on the paper. Option one, which is on paragraph 28, is to give approval for officers to tender and award the 3-year stray dog service at an anticipated value of over £250,000, which is why it's come to this decision session. Or option two, to not approve the above on the understanding that it's a statutory service and that must be provided with no break in provision. And the contract ends on the 30th of September 2025. Well, it would make, it's clear that the service provider that we've seen for the past 3 years and the service that's been offered over the past 3 years has been a very positive one. And so having external contractors rather than bringing it in-house seems an appropriate way forward. I appreciate that costs have gone up. They've gone up for everybody, including ourselves. So I'm happy to approve option 1, and I do give approval for officers to tender and award the 3-year contract.
Thank you.
And delegate that to officers.
Thank you.
To do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we now, I hand over. We were going to swap the agenda items, but now that Councillor Douglas, and welcome to Councillor Douglas, has arrived, we will go back to the original agenda as outlined on the papers and move to agenda item 8, and I will hand over to Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Councillor Pavlovic, and apologies for my late arrival at the meeting, but I was welcoming people from across the UK and Europe to the University of York to participate in our Human Rights City Network Conference, which actually I did mention a mental health provision and the fact that York has been leading the way since the 18th century in mental health provision. So I'm really glad to bring this paper today, and as way of starting, I will ask the officers. So we have Sarah Story, Michael Melvin and Kate Helm here to tell us what Acomb Garth is all about. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. So thank you for receiving this paper, which is a decision with regard to licence to occupy the premises at Acomb Garth for the purposes of, very excitingly, setting up the second mental health hub, this one to be the 24/7 mental health hub. And councillors and citizens will have heard about this particular project and partnership before, in terms of the success of the original pilot that was been set up under the Connecting Our City partnership. And I want to say thank you, first of all, to all partners in that partnership, including people who use services, experts by experience, voluntary sector partners, as well as colleagues from across a range of organisations that work in the statutory services. So the first point to know that this is a real partnership piece of work, and not without its challenges in terms of it is innovative by nature, and there are some complexities that the project team have certainly been working through, because really there is no precedent in some of the piece of work that we're seeking to do here. So I'm really grateful for all of the support from those partners, as well as our legal colleagues, procurement, HR, and others who've been involved in assisting us to understand the legal position and what we need to do to make sure that we're compliant in terms of the governance. So we've got an opportunity to utilise NHS funding that's been granted for a period of 2 years to set up the 24/7 hub, and the team have identified suitable premises and working with colleagues across that partnership. This decision is specifically about the technical matter of the licence to occupy. I'll just go through, if that's okay, Councillor Douglas. Before you arrived, we did have a public speaker, which was Councillor Runciman. So I'm just going to run through at Councillor Pavlovic's request those couple of points and questions, and then we'll respond to those before I just hand over to Kate and Michael for any more details.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you to Councillor Runciman for the comments, and I note the support from the previous administration in terms of the continuation of the plan to shift our services into community models of support. It's fantastic to have that cross-party support for the ethos and values of this piece of work. Councillor Runciman's comment, first of all, was about the continuity of services, noting that the NHS grant is for 2 years. So just to reassure that myself, colleagues across the partnership are meeting to work towards how we develop the plan for the long-term sustainable model of community-based support, which will be far more than just the hubs in the city, but we'll consider what is our overall offer of support for people experiencing mental ill health, and in terms of preventing people experiencing mental ill health, promoting wellbeing, and understanding what the long-term shift is that we need to make. So our plan is that we do that development work and that planning work alongside the next year and a half, 2 years worth of delivering against those existing commitments, because we absolutely want to make sure that the time, effort, motivation and commitment that's gone into this from everybody concerned is not lost. That's the last thing we want to happen. So we really appreciate that support, and we absolutely will be working towards that longer term plan. And we hope to have a seamless model that we can transition into alongside the existing funding, so that we don't have any lapse in services for people. In terms of how the hubs and the model will liaise with and work alongside existing services, both I think within the new hub and probably in that broader landscape, I absolutely agree. It is extremely important that we consult with all stakeholders, and the partnership have certainly done a significant amount of work to understand through those co-production mechanisms what's important in terms of delivery of services. And we absolutely won't stop there in terms of that ongoing engagement and consultation. So there are many services that will continue to be delivered from the Acomb Garth premises, and some that are supported to alternatives by Nimbus Care and Acomb Garth. We're confident, I think, at this point in time that those services can coexist, but also that we've considered things like access routes and models as part of the planning, which again we know is important from what people have told us. Thank you for the suggestion to consider a 136 suite, a place of safety. We will absolutely take that back to the partnership to have those discussions about that suggestion. However, it's obviously really important that whatever we deliver in the future absolutely fits and aligns with, again, the ethos, models and values that we've previously agreed across the partnership. And that we consider existing services that are available within the city and the appropriateness of what we have and where. But thank you very much, Councillor Huntsman, for that suggestion. In terms of the legal issues, we note that, as outlined in the paper, there's no way to fully mitigate all risk. And again, this is a novel agreement. It's not something that is simple to work through. The alternative, in terms of no risk to the organisation or the project, would be to do nothing. And I don't believe, as the statutory DAS and as a citizen of York and somebody who absolutely passionately supports the need to make that change and do the right thing for people, I don't think it's appropriate for us to do nothing. So I do fully support us stepping ahead. However, I do understand that we are within a week of having those signed agreements in place that are to the satisfaction of our relevant respective legal teams. And actually, our partners have actually proceeded with the work to the premises in advance of that agreement. So to that, in that sense, that the legal agreements are not holding up any work continuing. And I think the final point was about the importance of consultation with the local councillors in terms of councillors for the wards that are in that specific area and neighbouring wards. And again, I completely agree with the importance of that ongoing consultation and the importance of having that support from local councillors. I think we had some very early discussions with councillors for those wards when we were proposing that sort of area to get some feedback on things like, you know, what they knew about facilities and premises, what they knew about things like bus networks and how people travel and move around those areas. And I think having that support, you know, again, we're really grateful for that. It's really important, but we will continue to engage with councillors and through councillors with their constituents through the ongoing developments, as we will with all other stakeholders. So I think I've answered those points, and what I'll do is perhaps just pass over to Kate just for a brief summary of the technical aspects of the actual decision that we're asking to be made today. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for listening to the paper. So as Sarah said, it is quite a complex legal picture. So I suppose I'll just describe that part of the decision because Sarah's gone into the context. But we're really excited about the potential that Acomb Garth offers for the 24/7 Neighbourhood Mental Health Centre. And obviously the council hosts the project team that are leading on the development of the mental health hub, which leaves us really in the best position to hold the agreement on the use of Acomb Garth, which is why we've brought the paper. The challenge lies in the fact that the building's actually owned by NHS Property Services and not by Nimbus Care. And we're entering into an agreement with Nimbus Care, who lease that property off NHS Property Services. So whereas normally the council might enter into a lease agreement with the person that owns the property, in this scenario, we're entering into agreement with Nimbus Care, who then lease the property from NHS Property Services. So it's rather than having what would normally be in place would be a lease, we're looking at having a licence to occupy, as well as an agreement for licence to occupy, and then a side letter from NHS Property Services, just confirming to us that they're completely happy with those agreements and that they're happy that anything that is slightly off in terms of their lease agreement with Nimbus, that they're comfortable. So as an example, that we can use it out of hours, that we can have sole occupation of the building, that we can have it for the 2 years. So we've worked really hard with legal, and as Sarah said, legal colleagues have put so much work into this to get us to a point where we think we've mitigated all of the risks that we can. So we feel comfortable that we've mitigated any risks to the council in terms of having to enter an agreement longer than the 2 years if we didn't have the funding, or having to put the building back after the works have been done. So we're comfortable that we've mitigated those risks. And we've mitigated as far as we can with the side letter and in the licence to occupy any issues that might arise if anything happened with the whole use of the building changed. We've mitigated those kind of risks as far as we can within those documents. But as Sarah said, it's really hard to mitigate them entirely because it's quite a complex multi-agency arrangement that we kind of haven't been in this position to do before. So what we're asking is for approval for us to enter into that agreement for a licence to occupy, and a side letter relating to the property at Acomb Garth, and that once we've kind of got those documents in a sense that legal are comfortable with, that we delegate that authority to the Corporate Director of Adult Services in consultation with the Director of Governance and the Chief Finance Officer to take the steps that are necessary to kind of get those agreements in place and to sign them.
Thank you, Kate. That's really helpful, and thank you for both the comprehensive explanation of what is going on here in quite a complex but highly important process, and also the detailed report. And I do also understand that our opposition colleagues have had a good briefing on this, and so understand the ins and outs of the situation. And I have to say, this is a really, really important part of the delivery and reform of how we deliver mental health services in our city, and is really responding to the feedback that we've had from organisations involved in delivery of mental health services in the partnership, and also for people who access those services, and taking mental health services out into the community in the places where people want to and can access services really easily, and receive peer support. Delivering with a different method has really already been tremendously successful, and the Clarence Street Hub was a really good example of this, and highly, highly valued across our city. We've been really fortunate to receive over £2 million of funding from NHS England as part of a fairly limited mental health services transformation programme nationally. We were selected to take that forward, and the challenge with NHS and government money generally is that it comes in very quickly and we need to get on and spend it and deliver quickly, and that doesn't always fit within our time frames on decision making and all of the processes that need to sit around some of these arrangements. So we have been talking about this for a while. I know you've been and your team have been working tremendously hard, and the Mental Health Partnership has been as well. And I'd just like to back up what Sarah said about the long-term proposals for mental health services in York, that I sit on the York Place Board, the York Health and Care Partnership, as does Sarah, and Councillor Stills-Walshaw as well. And this is an ongoing conversation, isn't it? Where the Place Board are very committed to making this work for the city. And there are a lot of moving parts, but the will and desire is there and is already being looked into, planning 2 years out. So I'm really comfortable with that. We do have in front of us a different kind of arrangement, and for our legal colleagues in the council, of course, they always work to mitigate the risk for the council. They have had to adjust on this new way of working, and I'd like to thank them for their flexibility and willingness to find routes to delivering for the people of the city as well on this. So I would also like to say to everybody that we feel very honoured today to have the Chief Medical Officer for England visiting the council. He's here at the moment, I think he's just arrived, and he has come to see some of the innovative co-produced community-based services that are going on in York at the moment. And so I will be meeting with him later, and I will talk to him about our mental health partnership and the fantastic work that is being done. And York is in a position, a process of being held up as good example of work across our place partnership and also in our health services. So it's a really positive time for York in that respect. So the options that are available to me in making this decision are on page 55, 56 and 57. We have 3 options there. They are to sign the agreement as outlined in the paper, to wait and to consider further mitigations, or to do nothing. And I think from the information and assurances that we have all received over a period of time, that we can see that doing nothing would be very detrimental. Waiting would not help us get towards our goal or to get the services in place in the timelines that we need to do that. And so I am happy to go with option 1. And that is to move ahead and to sign the agreement. And so the recommendations for this decision are on page 51, 50 at paragraph 29. And I am just going up to that. So the recommendation from our very, very skilled and committed officers is to approve the option for City of York Council to enter into the AFL licence to occupy and a side letter relating to the property at Acomb, Garth, once they are agreed as the holder of the funds for the pilot, and to delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Adult Services and Integration, which the acronym for that is the DAS, in consultation with the Director of Governance and the Chief Finance Officer, to take such steps as are necessary to draft, negotiate and conclude the proposed agreement for licence to occupy and side letter. And the licence to occupy and side letter. So I make that decision. I'd like to give you the green light to go ahead with that. And I know that the Mental Health Partnership and our NHS colleagues will be very pleased with that. And I look forward to seeing the Acomb Garth 24/7 neighbourhood mental health hub open in Westfield. It's actually Westfield ward, one of our most disadvantaged wards in the city, and they really do need those community health services in the place where they can access them. So I'm very happy to approve, and thank you for all your work that you've done on this. Right, so in that case then I now hand over to Councillor Jenny Kent, who will take item number 9. Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas, Councillor Pakovic. I'm delighted to ask Paul McCabe, officer, to come and talk to us about the strategic partner endorsement of the White Rose Forest Strategic Plan 2025 to 2050. Paul, whenever you're ready, if you could give a brief outline. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. So I'm Paul McCabe. I work in the Council's climate change team. As you say, I'm here to talk about the White Rose Forest Endorsement Report. So just a little background, a bit of background about what the White Rose Forest is. It's a community forest partnership for North and West Yorkshire. It's one of 15 community forest partnerships nationally, by far the biggest. The partnership receives government funding, UK government funding, to distribute locally according to local priorities. And so this is why this is very important, because it's where the money goes. White Rose Forest is not just one forest, but it's the collection of all the woodlands and the trees that are outside of woodland across our region. The partnership consists of all local authorities within North and West Yorkshire, alongside a range of other stakeholders like the Woodland Trust and Forestry Commission. The work of the partnership is guided by a strategic plan. The current plan ends this year, and work has been ongoing over the last 12 months to develop and refresh the plan for the next 25 years. I'm going to go on now and just talk about some of the detail of that refreshed plan, hopefully for your endorsement later on. Just to give some broad context though, first off, White Rose Forest is alongside the Mersey Forest, the Manchester City of Trees and the Humber Forest, together contributing to the Northern Forest ambition to plant 50 million trees between Liverpool and Hull. It's an enormous ambition, but it's the community forest who will drive delivery towards that. That area I've just described is home to around 10 million people, but it only has 7.6% of woodland and tree cover, which is much lower than the UK average of 13%. And when you compare it to European averages of 30%, it's very stark. The new strategic plan, which is attached to Annex A in the report, it sets out the partnership's vision and aspirations for tree and woodland establishment and management within our region going forward. The vision is supported or underpinned by 5 strategic objectives. These are to expand the area of trees and woodland, to protect and restore more trees and woodland, to engage more people and communities and businesses in this endeavour, to promote the transformative role of trees and woodland, and to grow the impact and sustainability of the partnership that's driving delivery of those things. The vision and objectives align closely with the council's ambitions. So, as you'll know, in 2021, we agreed to increase our tree canopy cover within the city from 10.8% to 13% by 2050. The ambition also aligns very closely with our core strategies and plans. So the local plan is promoting greener and more sustainable places. The climate change strategy to sequester residual carbon and mitigate climate change risks. The health and well-being objectives are about improving access to green space for mental health reasons and air quality reasons. The economic strategy is about making York a more attractive place to live and invest and to visit. And the emerging local nature recovery strategy is about obviously protecting the environment, enhancing it where we can. So trees and woodlands are one of the most effective nature-based solutions for adapting to climate change and for protecting and enhancing biodiversity. And there's huge public support for tree planting. City of York Council and all local authorities within this region have a huge role to play in making these ambitions real. Already within our city, we've seen the successful delivery of many projects. We've got a 79-hectare new community woodland out at Knapton, sequestering 18,500 tonnes of carbon each over the next 100 years. We are working with our partners upstream to slow the flow from the river catchment, which is enhancing York's flood resilience. We've just planted over 5,000 trees within York's predominantly urban environment through the Green Streets Initiative, delivering a huge range of ecosystem service value going forward. And we're working with our city partners through the Sustainability Leaders Group to encourage and support new tree planting on their land and under their initiative. And obviously, we're managing our existing stock through the council's existing arboricultural policy. So the report sets out what sort of consultation has underpinned the development of this new strategic plan. Quite a lot of public and stakeholder engagement has taken place. It also sets out the implications for the new strategic plan. There are very few direct financial, HR, procurement, legal implications, but there are some opportunities relating to communications, health and well-being, obviously the environment and climate action. So the recommendations, options and recommendations in the report are to either endorse the plan or to not endorse the plan. And obviously by endorsing the plan, the council will be demonstrating its support to the White Rose Forest Partnership and the long-term strategic direction and priorities.
Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you also because I know you put considerable effort into the Green Streets programme, which was being very successful, even in a challenging spring this year with no rain. And we have lost some trees from that, but I know I've had inquiries about that. And I just wanted to assure anybody who's watching or who looks at this later that all those trees will be replaced under the contract at no extra expense to the council. But
absolutely right.
But it's been a really fantastic programme because we had a commitment to plant 4,000 trees in the course of this administration. We've already will have by the end of this next planting season achieved 5,300, pretty much halfway through. So I wanted to thank you personally for that and for bringing this report today. I fully support the work of the White Rose Forest. It's a nice coincidence that today I saw on the news the Northern Forest, that whole collective of all the different partnerships across the north celebrated planting 10 million trees to date. So that's a fifth of the way there, which is great. I also wanted to focus a little bit on the different actions that when one thinks of a forest, we think of our the wonderful work that's been done in the community woodland, which has planted nearly 200,000 trees, and that was started by the previous administration. We very much welcome that, and it's great that there's cross-party support for all of these actions. But you tend to think of going to a forest, and the point about the White Rose Forest strategy and action plan is that a forest is everywhere, and that's all of us. And that's very much reflected in the work we're doing, as you mentioned, with our sustainability partners. So we, as a council, have some land, but it's very limited. We can't possibly achieve our goal of increasing the tree canopy by 2% on council land alone. But that is okay because we're working across the city with the White Rose Forest, with the Woodland Trust, but also with our universities, with the hospital, with estates. And there's great work going on in Escrick Park, in Castlehowe, which is outside of York boundaries. But we've had various members of these organisations coming to talk at the council to sustainability partners to encourage everybody to use their own land to plant more trees. So we can focus on the land we have, and we are. And as part of our Parks Investment Programme, we're also going to be looking at where we can do additional planting that hasn't already happened in playgrounds, which will bring shade in the summer, particularly in a year like this. It becomes really apparent to us how much we need the shade and the cooling and the air quality from more trees. But I'm also putting a call out, as the White Rose Forest says, that this is to everybody, just every tree in everyone's garden is part of the White Rose Forest. It's a hopping or a jumping or a flying point for all sorts of creatures for biodiversity, but also a linking sort of corridor, which is vital. So don't think that you can't do anything. You are part of the White Rose Forest. If you plant a tree in your garden or a small shrub or a hedge, it's all part of it. And together, I'm really positive about this. Together, I think we will make that target. So I also wanted to say the paragraphs 15 to 20, which outline our strategic ambitions. The White Rose Forest and ourselves completely align on this. And I was really also pleased to see that the Green Streets programme, we managed to plant 80% of the trees in high or moderate priority areas, according to the Woodland Trust. That was 16 out of 21 wards were touched and involved over 100 volunteers. And we just want to build on that in conjunction with the White Rose Forest. I recently had really positive conversations with them. I look forward to working with them and all our partners across the city. And so I'm very happy to follow the recommendations of paragraph 2 on page 217. It would make no sense for us not to endorse and support this report. So I happily endorse the White Rose Forest Strategic Plan for 2025 to 2050 at page 221. And I very much look forward to working with them, with city partners, with residents, with community groups, with schools, with everybody to plant more trees for York and for nature. Thank you very much for all the work you've done on this.
Okay.
I think that brings, there isn't any other business, is there? Any emergency business? In that case, thank you very much, everybody, for taking part, and bring this meeting to a close.